Rangers were back on the pitch yesterday, but let's not sugarcoat it. Even with the 3 points in the bag, that performance left a lot to be desired. Supporters expected a statement, a dominant win to show things are finally starting to click. What they got instead was 90 minutes of frustration, sloppy football, and a narrow escape against one of the weakest sides in the league. And it's this growing sense of unease around IBROX that's now boiling over, with big voices in the Rangers community, like Chris Boyd, stepping forward to call out not just the players or the manager, but the entire structure behind the scenes. Let's start with the match itself. The scoreline says Rangers won, but anyone who watched that game knows it tells only part of the story. James Tavernier opened the scoring with a cracking acrobatic finish in the first half, the kind of goal that makes you think the team is finally hitting stride. He even had a chance to double the lead from the penalty spot minutes later, but credit to Jerome Pryor. It was a brilliant save. That moment felt like a warning, and sure enough, Rangers didn't push on. Livingston equalized in the second half, and suddenly the game looked wide open again. It took a late winner from Max Aarons to seal the deal, but let's be real. Scraping a result in the dying minutes against a team like Livingston is not what this club is built for. Russell Martin tried to put a brave face on things after the match. He praised his captain, highlighting how Tavernier played in multiple positions, led by example, and showed character after the missed penalty. The manager even went as far as saying the first half was the best Rangers have played all season, and maybe he's not wrong. There were moments of quality, spells of real attacking intent, and the team looked organized going forward. But once again, they couldn't sustain it. The second half was flat, lethargic, and completely lacking in control. Martin admitted as much, pointing to the massive drop-off in intensity and sharpness after the break. Yes, the substitutions made a difference, and yes, the team looked more dominant in the final third of the match, but it was too little, too late. For a club like Rangers, this inconsistency simply isn't acceptable. And this leads into the wider problem. Because while Martin is certainly under pressure for the football being played, or, in some cases, the football not being played, there are deeper cracks forming behind the scenes. Chris Boyd didn't hold back in his latest comments, and he's putting the spotlight squarely on the leadership at the top of the club. We're talking about sporting director Kevin Thelwell, head of recruitment Dan Purdy, and the rest of the boardroom figures who were supposed to usher in a new era of smart, forward-thinking strategy. But right now, what exactly do Rangers have to show for all that big talk over the summer? The recruitment has been questionable, to say the least. You spend somewhere between £8 to £10 million on a striker like Youssef Chermatai, a player who, so far, hasn't looked remotely ready for this level, and fans are going to ask questions. And rightly so. This isn't a club that can afford expensive experiments. Every signing has to make an impact. And when you throw that kind of money at a gamble, the consequences are huge. Boyd is just saying what the supporters have been thinking for weeks. What's the plan? Where's the strategy? What are these executives actually doing? It doesn't stop at one signing. Boyd also brought up the so-called root and branch review that was supposed to reset the entire football operation at Rangers. A moment of reflection, they called it. A turning point. But months later, there's been no clarity, no transparency, and absolutely no progress. It feels like yet another PR spin with no real substance behind it. The kind of empty promise that fans have heard far too many times before. And people are losing patience. You cannot keep telling Rangers supporters to wait and trust the process when the process is producing performances like this. Then there's the managerial appointment itself. The decision to bring in Russell Martin raised eyebrows from the start. A manager who had been out of work, who didn't exactly light the world on fire in his last job, and who was up against candidates with much stronger CVs. Yet somehow, he got the job. And now that the results aren't going his way, those decisions are being picked apart even more. The sense is that the club has been reactive rather than proactive, making decisions based on short-term convenience rather than long-term vision. So yes, Martin is under scrutiny, and he has to take responsibility for what's happening on the pitch. But the problems are clearly bigger than just one man in the dugout. The structure around him is failing. The recruitment is off. The leadership is invisible. And the fans are sick of being told to be patient when it's obvious the people in charge aren't delivering. The win over Livingston might have spared Martin from more intense calls for his removal, but it hasn't calmed the storm. Far from it. If anything, it's added fuel to the fire. Because supporters watched that game and saw the same problems. A lack of urgency, no clear identity, and a team that looks unsure of itself far too often. For every good moment, there's a stretch of 10, 15, 20 minutes where Rangers look second best, and that's just not good enough at this level. This isn't just about one bad performance. It's a pattern now, and when you zoom out, the bigger picture isn't pretty. Poor results, questionable signings, a board that refuses to communicate clearly with its supporters, and a manager who seems overwhelmed by the scale of the task. Boyd's comments may be harsh, but they reflect the frustration and anger that's spreading through the fan base. There's a feeling that the club has lost its way, not just on the pitch, but off it as well. Decisions are being made without a clear vision. Promises are being broken, and the supporters, the lifeblood of the club, are being left in the dark. If the people at the top think a last-minute win against Livingston is enough to paper over the cracks, they're in for a rude awakening. Fans aren't stupid. They see what's happening, and they're not going to be silenced by a single goal. There needs to be accountability. There needs to be a plan. Because right now, it feels like Rangers are stumbling from game to game, hoping something clicks, and that's not how a successful football club operates. That's how a club loses its way. If that narrow victory over Livingston left Rangers fans with more questions than answers, then what followed in Europe only deepened the crisis. The 1-0 defeat to Genk at IBROX was another stark reminder of just how far this team is from where it needs to be. It wasn't just a loss. It was another toothless, disjointed performance on a night where the crowd showed up expecting a reaction, a statement of intent to kick off their European campaign. What they got instead was 90 minutes of the same problems: lack of cohesion, poor decision-making, and a side that looks mentally fragile when put under pressure. The result puts the group stage campaign on the back foot right from the start, and it's hard to say anyone was surprised. Even with the boost of a weekend win, there was no sense that this Rangers team had turned a corner. And once again, the same themes came back to haunt them. Sloppy passing, no. Rhythm and possession, and a lack of movement off the ball that made it far too easy for the Belgian side to press high and win back control. This wasn't some European giant coming to town and putting on a masterclass. This was a winnable fixture. But Rangers never looked like a team that believed it could win. To make matters worse, the red card to Mohamed Diomande before halftime changed everything. A reckless challenge in midfield, one of those moments where frustration gets the better of a player. Up to that point, Rangers weren't great, but at least they were in the game. Going down to 10 men just added another layer of pressure onto a team that's already struggling to keep its head above water. From that moment on, the result felt inevitable. You could see the belief drain out of the players. The organization crumbled. And despite Genk missing a penalty and squandering a few chances, it always felt like only one team was going to take control. And they did. The goal came late in the second half, but it was coming for a long time. A well-worked move, finished clinically, and another blow to a Rangers side that just cannot seem to put together 90 minutes of concentration. The home crowd, who had been right behind the team at kickoff, were left with nothing once again. No fight, no fire, no spark. Just silence, frustration, and that familiar feeling of disappointment that's become far too common at IBROX over the last year. After the match, the reaction from the dressing room was what you'd expect. Hurt, deflated, but trying to stay defiant. Oscar spoke about missed opportunities, about how the team still created chances even with 10 men, and how they're desperate to bounce back. But those words are starting to feel empty. The fans have heard it all before. We'll review the game, pick ourselves up, work hard during the week. It's the same lines every time, and yet the same issues remain unsolved. There's no sense of growth, no sense of learning from past mistakes. Just rinse and repeat. Poor performance, public apology, back to square one. And now, things are starting to boil over. The anger that was already growing among the support has turned into outright protest. Chants against the manager and the board. Banners in the stands. The calls for change are getting louder, more direct, and more widespread. People have had enough. They're watching a team fall apart, and they're watching a leadership group that seems incapable of stopping the rot. The pressure on Russell Martin is immense, but so too is the pressure on the men above him. Because this isn't just about tactics anymore. It's about trust, and right now, the fans don't trust anyone in charge. The calls for Chief Executive Patrick Stewart to go are growing by the day. Supporters feel like there's no clear communication from the boardroom, no direction, and no connection to the people who matter most, the fans. When things go wrong at a club like Rangers, the least supporters expect is honesty, transparency, and accountability. What they're getting instead is silence, or worse, spin. There's this growing perception that decisions are being made by people who don't understand the weight of the shirt, the demands of this fan base, or the standards that must be met week in, week out. Andrew Kavanagh, the chairman, is now facing calls to act. Fans are demanding leadership. They want action. They want someone to take responsibility for what's unfolding on and off the pitch. It's not just the manager's future on the line anymore. It's the entire sporting project. Everything from recruitment to development to game preparation feels broken. And the people tasked with fixing it are either making it worse or saying nothing at all. That silence speaks volumes. It tells the fans everything they need to know about where the club is at. Russell Martin, to his credit, hasn't shied away from the challenge. He's continued to speak to the media, trying to reassure supporters that the squad is working hard, that they're sticking to their principles, and that the belief is still there. But words are cheap, and right now, they're not backed up by performances. The players might be desperate to improve, as Martin puts it, but the evidence on the pitch tells a different story. Slow starts, heads dropping under pressure, and a team that too often looks like it's just going through the motions. The idea that Rangers can still turn this around is fading fast. Every week, the gap to the top grows wider. Every fixture feels like a must-win. And every slip-up just reinforces the idea that this is a squad lacking the character, quality, and leadership to compete at the level expected. There's no margin for error now. No more second chances. The fans have reached their limit. And if something doesn't change soon, the season could be over before it ever really begins. What's worse is the fear that this is all just part of a wider cycle of mediocrity. That instead of building something sustainable, Rangers are stuck lurching from crisis to crisis. A couple of wins paper over the cracks, then the next defeat brings everything crashing back down. There's no consistency, no upward trajectory, just stagnation. And while the players and the manager carry the visible weight of those struggles, the real blame, as many fans see it, lies higher up. There was a moment earlier this year when optimism briefly returned to IBROX. A new direction, new voices behind the scenes, a promise to modernize and rebuild with purpose. But months later, there's little sign of progress. The recruitment has been questionable, the tactical identity is still unclear, and the squad looks weaker than it did last season. That's the most damning part of it all. With all the changes, all the money spent, and all the promises made, how has this team taken a step backwards? Before we continue, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications to get all the exclusive news about Rangers FC. Don't overlook any details about your beloved team. It's crucial for Rangers FC fans. Whispers are swirling through the corridors of Scottish football as news breaks of a potentially seismic shift in the world of Rangers. Fraser Thornton, the enigmatic figure behind the club's recent surge in profile and fortunes, is reportedly on the verge of sealing a deal that could make even the most seasoned pundits blink in disbelief. According to sources close to the matter, Thornton is in advanced talks with none other than Evangelos Marinakis, the Greek shipping magnate, whose reach in European football has already stirred more than a few headlines. The deal, rumored to be worth a sum that would comfortably sit in the billions, is said to involve the outright sale of Rangers Football Club, a move that would send shockwaves not only across IBROX, but throughout the Scottish Premiership and beyond. Fans have taken to social media in droves, speculating on what such a transaction could mean for the club's future. Would Marinakis bring a fresh wave of investment, or would the cherished traditions of the Light Blues be reshaped under new ownership? Insiders hint that the talks have been conducted under the strictest confidentiality, with only a handful of executives and advisors privy to the finer details. The timing, some say, could hardly be more delicate, given Rangers' recent run of form and the ever-intense scrutiny from rival supporters. While no official announcement has been made, the rumor mill is alive with conjecture. Some whisper that Thornton sees this as the pinnacle of his tenure, a chance to secure a legacy and financial return that few could ever dream of. Others wonder whether Marinakis' previous football dealings offer a glimpse of what might lie ahead: ambition, controversy, and a style of management that never shies away from the limelight. As speculation mounts, one thing is clear. If the deal goes through, the landscape of Scottish football could be transformed overnight. Until then, the city of Glasgow watches, waits, and debates what could be the most sensational football story in recent memory. Greetings, fans. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, as it's greatly appreciated by Rangers FC. And don't forget to share your thoughts on the news in the comments section below. Until the next video, stay tuned.